Good afternoon. I'm Mariia Chernysh, student of National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and I want to present the results of my research, Content Analysis of Euromaidan and Antimaidan Propaganda. This research was performed during the Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity and was aimed to study two opposite informational campaigns of Euromaidan and Antimaidan that were organized by Ukrainians for Ukrainians and spread with the help of the social web. The goal was to disassemble elements of each poster and identify similar and different features of propaganda. Thus, understanding differences and similarities in these two propaganda campaigns is needed to create and develop the new state's informational policy that will be positively perceived all over Ukraine. For this analysis, 4 major groups in social network Vkontakte were selected, 2 representing each social movement, and 113 propaganda posters, 58 of Euromaidan and 55 of Antimaidan, were analyzed. It should be mentioned that posters selected were the most similar to traditional propaganda posters, for example, of the Cold War period. So in my content analysis, I disassembled elements of each poster according to chosen categories and compared the quantitative indexes of these categories. Each poster was analyzed according to the following categories. The first two were the media type of propaganda and its text characteristics. These categories showed whether it's image only or image with text. Text characteristics meant the usage of mottos, definitions, quotations, appeals, paraphrased text in propaganda message, and so on. The results showed that both movements are likely to use text in their propaganda posters. Approximately 50 images of both informational campaigns contained text. As you can see, propaganda posters of Euromaidan used mottos, slogans, and meeting announcements more often. It was caused by the fact that Euromaidan was constantly functioning and needed propaganda of these specific types. In its turn, propaganda of Antimaidan used paraphrased text, quotations, and definitions. Protests of Antimaidan occurred less frequently, and because of that, there was a need to develop more provocative texts. The next analyzed category was emotionality, that had to illustrate positive or negative attitude, behavior, peaceful or aggressive mood of posture. On this slide you can see the examples of positive and negative emotionality on propaganda posters. According to the results in both campaigns, positive and negative propaganda is equally represented. But I should mention that there is a tendency to use more positive and less negative propaganda for Euromaidan campaign and vice versa. As for the background category, the meaning of category is pretty obvious. The variants were the next: national flag, flags of other countries, one-color background, and other variants. This category was extremely connected to the used symbols and modus of their connotation, because in many cases symbols were used with different meanings in unity with specific backgrounds, creating new understanding of what is shown. Here flags and symbols are also used, but they are illustrating special attitude towards something. Other category that is related to the two previous ones is the impersonation of countries and their modus. That is the image of symbolic buildings, gestures, signs, territories associated with other countries, and attitude towards them. In spite of the fact that chosen categories are really compatible, such detailed analysis is needed to study and understand components used in visual propaganda. Now I will present the results of data analysis for these 3 categories. Both campaigns use approximately similar backgrounds in their propaganda posters, but more often white and one-color backgrounds were used on images. Much less the black background and European Union flag were used by Euromaidan, and St. George ribbon and Russian flag by Antimaidan. I'd like to draw your attention to the usage of the symbols, which is of great interest in propaganda of both movements. The usage of national, mourning, and other symbols, and combination of used symbols are very typical for Euromaidan. It is explained by the pro-Ukrainian orientation and tragic events during the revolution. As for Antimaidan, it exploits Russian symbolics, symbols of the USA, the USSR, and swastika, which is associated with fascism. Moreover, the modus of symbols varies greatly in Antimaidan propaganda. The data about impersonation of countries and in propaganda of both campaigns is a little bit contradictory. On the one hand, in Antimaidan propaganda, the appeal to other countries and eastern Ukraine, a specific region, occur much more often, which is contrary to its pro-Russian orientation. At the same time, modus towards other countries for Antimaidan propaganda is more varying. On the other hand, propaganda of Euromaidan displays Ukraine and, in one case, the USSR. So, 57 posters of 58 selected were imaging Ukraine. Moreover, the modus is more positive than negative. The next category was the presence of social movements participants and modus. In other words, it means the image of and attitude towards politicians, protesters, participants of Euromaidan and Antimaidan. If we talk about the image of personalities that were displayed, in both cases Ukrainian politicians, dead personalities, graphic characters and animals, people as impersonation of Ukraine, fighters and warriors are equally represented. What was completely different was the modus towards participants. This diagram refers to Euromaidan propaganda. In this case, participants are shown either positively or negatively. Modus towards the politicians is negative, while towards people, protesters and other alternatives is positive. Here are the results of Antimaidan. As you can see, the distinctive feature is the negative attitude towards the protesters. The only poster of Antimaidan propaganda reflects people as impersonation of Ukraine in neutral modus. The common feature for posters of both movements is the negative attitude towards Ukrainian politicians. As for the humor usage, it was the hardest category because of the different attitudes and tastes of both sides. In spite of the fact that funny thing is always funny, some pictures were really specific. So the humor is really the subjective category. Fortunately, most visual propaganda didn't contain humor. To be more specific, 83 images were totally serious. Only 30 images are thought to be humorous. It should be mentioned that the black humor and disgraceful attitude towards participants were found in 17 anti-Maidan posters. That's why it was so hard to code this category. And now conclusions. The main differences of propaganda were based on specific experiences and different political orientation. But the study showed that practically all propaganda posters of both movements had common or similar elements in each category. On their basis, the new propaganda that will be positively or neutrally perceived all over Ukraine can be created. Among these characteristics are the following: the usage of images with text, the usage of neutral background, for example white, black, and of other colors, the usage of national symbols, appeal to Ukraine or other countries, but in the last case it should be used with neutral modus, avoidance of politicians and protesters in propaganda, seriousness, positive attitude or emotionality in propaganda. Of course, this list is not complete, but consideration of these characteristics in creation of new visual propaganda posters can have positive results. Finally, I would like to end my presentation with the examples of the most beautiful propaganda posters, which can be classified as art. Thank you for watching.